Shalom, shalom. We're going to do our Bible study today on the parable of the sower, which I've heard many Messianics and Christians tell you that you cannot understand any parables unless you understand this one. So I'm going to show you the Hebraic way to understand this through the Torah and the prophets. Shall we begin? I think we shall. So the parable of the sower is in Mark 4, Matthew 13, and Luke 8. And if you have a great reference Bible like this one, it tells you that. We're going to read Mark because it's the earliest. And in fact, I'm not going to even open up Luke and Matthew. This is Mark was written probably about 75 AD. Matthew probably about maybe a little bit earlier, maybe 90. Ignatius of Antioch quotes it in 110, but Luke tells you it was written to Theophilus. Theophilus was the bishop of, I believe, Alexandria. I have to double check that, but he was the one that Luke was writing to. Theophilus was bishop when? Around 130 AD. So Luke and Acts were written around 130 AD. And if you want to go to John, John was written about 160 AD. All right, so let's read it. And he began to teach again by the sea, and such a very large crowd gathered to him that he got into a boat in the sea and sat down. And the whole crowd was by the sea on the land. And he was teaching them many things in parables. So, what is that word? In Greek, it's literally a transliteration. So this is one of the things that these translators have done is they hide the meaning through transliteration. It's the same with the word baptism, which what does baptism mean? Why did they do that? Well, because the Church of England, when they translated the New Testament and the rest of the Bible at the same time, their goal was not accuracy, it was to defend the doctrines of men. The Church of England did not want a translation that contradicted their religious views. The church, where does that come from? It's a German word for circus. Baptism, where does that come from? Well, it's another transliteration because the Greek word used is baptizo. So, to not upset the ones that sprinkle water on infants' heads, they changed baptizo into a transliteration of baptism. But the word in Greek means to immerse. So let's look at Strong's definition. Parabole, from G3846, a similitude, i.e., a symbolic, fictitious narrative of common life conveying a moral, apothegm, or adage, a comparison, a figure, a parable, proverb. Strong's G38, this is from Thayer's. Parabole, for the Septuagint, it comes from, I believe that's Michelet, which is the word proverb. Placing of one thing by the side of another juxtaposition, as the ships of battle, Polybius, metaphorically a comparison of one thing with another, a likeness, a similitude. Plato, Isocrates, Polybius, Plutarch, universally. So, if you look at the usage in the Torah, the first time it's used is in Numbers 23, which is kind of interesting. Balak, right? Then he took up this discourse, or in the Septuagint, the Greek translation, it's parable. He took up this parable and said, from Aram, Balak has brought me Moab's king from the mountains of the east. Come curse Jacob for me, and come denounce Israel. And this is his parable, his saying. How shall I curse whom God has not cursed? And how can I denounce whom Yahweh has not denounced? For I see from the top of the rocks, and I look from the hills. Behold, a people who dwells alone and will not be reckoned among the nations. Who can number the dust of Jacob, and who can count the fourth part of Israel? Let me die the death of the upright, and let my end be like this. So he's saying you can't curse the enemy of Balak, Israel, because they are righteous at this moment. Now, another one that's kind of interesting is the saying, the riddle and parable in Ezekiel. Now the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, propound a riddle to speak a parable to the house of Israel. And you will say, Thus says the Lord Yahweh, a great eagle with great wings, long pinions, and full of plumage of many colors, came to Lebanon and took away the top of the cedar. He plucked off the topmost of its young twigs and brought it to a land of merchants. He set it in a city of traders. He also took some of the seed of the land and planted it in a field fit for seed. He placed it beside an abundant waters. He set it like a willow. Then it sprouted and became a low spreading vine with its foliage turned towards him, but its roots remained under it. So it became a vine and yielded shoots and sent out branches. But there was another great eagle with great wings and much plumage. Behold, this vine bent its roots towards him and sent out its foliage toward him from the beds where it was planted, that he might water it. It was planted in a good field beside abundant waters, that it might yield branches and bear fruit and become a majestic vine. And thus says the Lord Yahweh, will it succeed? Will he not pull up by its roots and cut off its fruit, so that it dries up, so that all is left is the sprouting leaves dry up? And neither by a great strength nor by many people can it be raised from the roots again. And behold, though it is planted, will it succeed? Will it not completely dry up as soon as the east wind shall strike it, dry up the beds where it sprouted? This is pretty interesting, as it's pretty clear the Yeshua was basing his parable on the parable here in Ezekiel. And it has a very similar connotation. Listen to this. Behold, the sower went out to sow. And as you saw in my picture, a sower doesn't sow one seed. We'll get to that too. You don't cast one seed and hope that it grows into everything you need. You cast many seeds, and this is the Hebraic understanding of the word. Zerah means seed, plural. Listen to this. Behold, the sower went out to sow, and it happened that as he was sowing, some seed, and this is plural as well, fell beside the road, and the birds came up and ate it up. And other seed, plural, doesn't matter that it doesn't have the S, it's not one seed that fell on the rocky ground where it did not have much soil, and it immediately sprang up because it had no depth of soil. After the sun rose, it was scorched away, and because it had no root, it withered away. So I was going to talk about, where's that at? The rocky ground. So Deuteronomy 32:37, it says something really interesting. And he will say, where are their gods? The rock in which they sought refuge. So the rock represents your foundation. Are you founded in Yahweh, the God of Israel, the God of Isaac, the God of Abraham? Are you founded in that? Or you're founded in the imagination of men? That's the rocky soil, because it's not a foundation. So also, let's close that. The sun scorched you. Because why? Because like the parable in Ezekiel, you lose the living water. So check this out in Jeremiah. For my people have done two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters. So who is this talking about? Yahweh. Yahweh alone is our fountain of living waters. To hew for themselves cisterns. So what have they done? They've forsaken Yahweh and made a god in their own image. They tried to water themselves with that, but they can't. It's a broken cistern. It's mortal. It's an image. It's not Yahweh. It can hold no water. So when they go to water themselves, they just become scorched by the sun. Another seed fell among what? The thorns. Then the thorns came up and choked it up and yielded no crop. So when is the first time the thorns are used? In the curse on Adam. Then to Adam he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, have eaten from the tree about which I commanded you, you shall not eat from it, and cursed is the ground because of you. And this is important as well because, the doctrines of men tell you that Adam was cursed, but Adam was not cursed. Yahweh cursed the ground, not the man. In pain you will eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles shall grow for you. So what does that mean? That means that we have to work. And this includes in your heart and your soul. You can't just expect the good word of Yahweh's Torah to be planted here and to grow into you into a good person, to a good man, spiritually and physically, because you have to work. You have to get rid of those thorns in your heart, but also in your land. If you're not working to pull the weeds, to pull up the thorns and thistles, they'll choke out the seed, plural, in your heart and in your life. Thorns and snares are in the way of the crooked. He who keeps his soul will be far from them. So this is exactly what he's saying. If you are not actively working to get rid of the thorns, guess what happens? They'll overtake the land. They'll overtake your heart. Thorns, and this is what I've seen working on the land that Yahweh's given me, they grow up like crazy if you don't keep track of them. It just sprouts up a single little vine, right? And then weeks later, what is it? It's a whole bush. If you don't take care of it in your heart, it's the same way. If you have something that pops up that makes you a prickly pear that you don't want to deal with people the way Father wants you to deal with them, all of a sudden that's not just a single prickly pear, it's a whole bush. And when somebody approaches you, you're lashing out at them. You can't deal with it because you haven't been planting yourself in Father's living water, the Torah. All right. And the other seeds fell into good soil. And as they grew up and increased, they were yielding a crop and producing 30, 60, and 100-fold. And he was saying, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. And who has ears to hear? Deuteronomy 29:4. Yet to this day, Yahweh has not given you a heart to know, nor eyes to see, nor ears to hear. Yahweh has to open your eyes. He has to open your heart, and he has to open up your ears. You see, when Ezekiel was speaking in parables to Israel, that destruction was coming because of their wickedness, many of them did not have the heart to perceive this, the eyes to see, or ears to hear, because of their continued rebellion, their pride. They didn't want to turn to the Torah. And this is what Deuteronomy 29 is about. It comes right after the blessings and the curses. The curses come why? The affliction comes why? Because you refuse to turn to Yahweh, your God, and you refuse to turn from your sins. So let's look down a little bit further here. For you know how we lived in the land of Egypt, and how we came through the midst of the nations through which you passed. Moreover, you have seen their detestable things, their idols of wood, of stone, silver, and gold, which they had with them. Unless there be among you a man or a woman, or a family or tribe, whose heart turns away for today from Yahweh, our God, to go serve the gods of the nations. What is the nations in Hebrew? We've got to have a Hebraic understanding, right? Whose heart labab, pana, turns away, yom, today, im, from, Yehovah, the Lord, Elohim, our God, Yelak, to go, abad, serve, Elohim, the gods, goi, what? Of the him, goi, goim, which here is hai goim, the nations. Shalom, brother. So the goyim is the Hebrew word that became Gentiles. The Gentiles serve idols. And he's warning you, when you're out there among the Gentiles, the goyim, the nations, don't serve the same gods they serve. Continue to serve Yahweh alone. But let's keep reading this because it's powerful. It's scary that somebody's heart can be so hard and so cold, so like stone, that they are eating what? Wormwood. Wormwood. Wormwood's allegorical in Revelation. It's not literally an asteroid coming down. It's what's in your heart. Yahweh your God to go serve the gods of other nations, lest there be among you a root bearing poisonous fruit and wormwood. And here we go. The fruit, what fruit are you bearing? And it will be when he hears the words of this curse, Deuteronomy 28, that he will bless himself in his heart, saying, I have shalom, peace, though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart, in order to sweep away the watered land with the dry. So this person, they're under affliction, and they say, you know what, it doesn't matter. I know I'm serving the right thing. That's the pride. I know that I'm afflicted. I know this is trial, but I'm not going to turn back to Yehovah alone. And this is when he says, Yehovah shall not be willing to pardon him, but rather the anger of Yehovah and his jealousy will burn against that man, and every curse which is written in his book will be rest upon him. So those of you that are afflicted and believe you have peace of God, he's telling you, no, you're going to be blotted out of my book from under heaven because you did not turn back to me. Right. 1 Samuel 8:5 is a great curse against the nation for choosing a man to lead them instead of Yahweh. So now let's read a little bit further. Mark 4:10. And when he was alone, his followers, along with 12, began asking him about the parables. And he was saying to them, to you has been given the mystery of the kingdom of God, but to those who are outside, everything comes in parables, so that while seeing, they may not see, and while perceiving, they may not hear. And this is really interesting. So check this out. Isaiah 6:10. This is the same thing that we saw in Deuteronomy 29. See, if it's from the Torah, you can always be sure that it references Torah, that there is a foundation in Torah. He said, go and tell his people, keep on hearing, but do not understanding. Keep on seeing, but do not know. Why? Because they don't have eyes to see or ears to hear. Render their hearts of this people insensitive, their ears dull, and their eyes dim. Let they see with their eyes, let they hear with ears, and understand with their hearts, and return and be healed. Isn't that what he just says? Actually, I think that was in Matthew or Luke. It says that. Let's open these up and check that out real quick. It's in Matthew. Yeah, so he actually quotes the whole thing here because, the whole point of this parable is that Israel was under the curse for their rebellion. And this is the context of the first century. You got to understand. Israel was under the curse for their rebellion. This is why Yahweh allowed Jerusalem to be destroyed. He did not desire at that moment that they return to him and be healed. And this is what you see from the context of Isaiah 6. At this moment, because of their wickedness, he did not want to open up their eyes. He did not want to open up their ears. He did not want to open up their heart. So if you want to pray for mercy on someone, pray Yahweh have mercy on his people. Give them eyes to see, give them ears to hear, and give them a heart to perceive. That, hearing the Torah, they return to it. And they return to Yahweh, their God. And he said to them, this is verse 13, do you not understand this parable? How will you understand all the parables? The sower sows the word. And these are the ones who were beside the road and heard the word, and immediately Satan comes up and takes away the word. So what is that? That's the lack of mercy. Remember, we went to the first time Satan is used is in the book of Numbers, right? Numbers 22. But God was angry because he was going. This is about Balaam again. So the angel of Yahweh took his stand in the way as an adversary. The word adversary in Hebrew is hasatan. So the adversary is standing against Balaam as an angel of Yahweh, saying, you're not going to curse the people of Yahweh. If you are cursed because you were disobedient, the angel of Yahweh is going to take away the word, which is the Torah, so you cannot plant it in your heart. In a similar way are those that are in rocky places. When they hear the word, they immediately receive with joy, but they have no root in themselves, but are only temporarily. Then, when affliction or persecution arises because of the word, immediately fall away. Affliction only comes to the cursed. And this is important. Remember, Balak sent for Balaam to curse, to bring affliction on the children of Israel. But Yahweh says, no, you're not going to do that. But what happens later? In Israel, this is Numbers 25. Israel remained at Shittim, and the people began to play the harlot with the daughters of Moab. Indeed, they called the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and people ate and bowed down to their gods. So Israel joined themselves to Baal Apor, and the anger of Yahweh burned against Israel. Now affliction comes. Affliction comes because they're sacrificing to other gods. So they have no root in themselves, but are only temporary. So if affliction came because you turned to other gods, and instead of bowing down, repenting, you keep pressing in and worshiping that other God, and more affliction comes, But you've turned away from the word already when affliction comes. And others are those who being sown among the thorns. Remember what thorns are. Thorns are what happens because Adam ate the fruit. And thorns come as well to test us. Will you stay solid in the word? Will you prune the thorns, or will you let them overtake you and become merciless? Let's go to another passage here. Hosea 6. For I delight in loving kindness rather than sacrifice. What is that? Mercy. If you are not merciful to someone who has a different understanding, then you are not fulfilling this passage. And this is a passage that's also quoted in the New Testament, Matthew 9. But go and learn what this means. I desire compassion, mercy, not sacrifice. For I did not come to what? Call the righteous, but the sinners. That's right. He is saying what Christians will never say. There are righteous people among those walking among Yeshua, righteous men and righteous women. But, if you opened up your New Testament and actually read it, you would see this. In the days of King Herod, this is Luke 1:5, there was a priest named Zechariah, who in the division of Abijah, and he had a wife from the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. And they were both righteous in the sight of God. They were righteous. They were already righteous in the sight of God. Not everyone is a sinner. Walking blamelessly in all the commandments and righteous requirements of Yahweh. Yeah, I understand that. That's a trip, isn't it? With what shall I become before Yahweh, and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with yearly calves? Is Yahweh pleased with 1,000 of rams, with 10,000 rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has told you, O man, what is good, and what does Jehovah require of you, but to do justice. What is justice? Zedekah. Actually, let's really dig into this. And this is Micah 6. I didn't say that when I started reading. I guess that's mishpat here. So let's dig into what mishpat is. The first time it's used. Mishpat is translated as judgment, manner, right, cause, ordinance, lawful, order. Judgment, justice, ordinance. So the first time this is used is in Genesis 18:19. For I have known him, and that he may command his children and his household after him, that they keep the ways of Yahweh to do righteousness and justice. So righteousness here is tzedakah and mishpat. And let's go a little bit further into different books. Exodus 15:25. Then he cried out to Yahweh, and Yahweh showed him a tree, and then he threw it into the waters, and the waters became sweet. And there he sat for them a statute and a judgment, and there he tested them. This is an interesting. The mishpat was a judgment to test them. If you will earnestly listen to the voice of Yahweh your God and do what is right, zedekah, in his sight, and give him ear to his commandments, mitzvot, keep all of his statutes. I forget the word for statute. Hadok. And there I will put none of the diseases on you. And this is one of the things I read, and I realized, it humbled me. Like, I'm not fully in covenant because the diseases of the land are coming on me. It's certainly Israel today, it's not. They pushed forward the jab pass, right? Because the diseases of the world are coming upon Israel. Why? Well, because they're failing the test, which I put on the Egyptians, for I, Yahweh, am your healer. Do you believe that? Are you suffering from the diseases of the land, or are they going over you? Are they passing over you? Let's see. All right, Micah 6. So that's mishpat, to walk in righteousness, to walk in justice, to be a just person. So what's the next word? Hesed. That's mercy, kindness. We are all at different points in our walk with Father. And people are so judgmental. They don't mishpat zedekah. They don't judge righteously. Like, they see what you say and they don't understand it because the word, the Torah, isn't planted in their heart. And then they just judge you. They cast you, stone you, because you don't speak the words they believe are righteous. They aren't hesed. They aren't merciful. And to walk humbly. What is that? Well, the most humble man in the Bible, in the Torah, the prophets, is Moses. And what does Moses do? I love this scene in Numbers. I think I'm off. Yeah, number 16. When Korah rises up against Moses. Now Korah, the son of Izhar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, with Dathan, Abiram, and sons of Eliab, on the sons of Peleth, the sons of Reuben, took others, and they rose up before Moses together with some of the sons of Israel, 250 leaders of the congregation, those called upon by the assembly, men of renown. When they assembled them together against Moses and Aaron, and said, "You have gone far enough, for all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and Yahweh is in their midst. So why do you exalt yourself above the assembly of Yahweh? So he's accused of exalting himself, placing himself above the others. And what does he do? He says, Moses heard this and fell on his face. He literally lowered himself to be below these men. So this is what humility means. When someone challenges you, do you use your mind to show them they are wrong, or do you fall on the ground to say, Father, have mercy on me if I'm wrong? This is what Father has put on my heart. This is what he wants of us. When you're wrong, don't go and get into your mental attitude that you are better than them. You're not. Fall on your face. And others, did I read that? No. Others are those who are being sown among the thorns. So remember, the thorns we have to work at, we have to destroy. They're the ones who hear the word, but the worries of the world, the deceitfulness of riches, and the desires for anything also interests and chokes the word. It becomes unfruitful. And we'll get to that. What is the fruit? What is good fruit? And those are the ones who are sown on the good soil, who hear the word and accept it and are bearing fruit 30, 60, 100-fold. I remember when I was going to a church in Washington State, and the pastor came out and he said, I'm going to teach the parable of the soils. And then he tells you it's about money. Yeah. And he's not the only one. This is a common theme among modern Christianity. The seed is money. If you cast a good tithe, it will return to you 30, 60, 100-fold. Oh, there was a term that I think is so right that, a brother on his journey who passed away many years ago, he said this: churches are tear barns. And it's so true. Right. That's a great one. I have to actually talk to you via email. I don't know what your real name is. Moses wanted to be blotted out of the book. So in Exodus 32, after Israel had Aaron make the golden calf, they were bowing to it. And Yahweh says, I have seen this people, and behold, they are stiff-necked people. Thou then let me alone. My anger may burn against them, and I may consume them, and I will make you a great nation. So he's saying, you know what? I'm going to revoke the promise to Israel because of their wickedness, and the nation will be built out of your seed. And Moses entreated the favor of Yahweh his God and said, Oh Yahweh, why does your anger burn against your people, whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with the great and with power and strength? Why should the Egyptians speak, saying, with evil intent, he brought them out to kill them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your burning anger and relent concerning doing harm to your people. And this is the other important thing. Not all of them were sacrificing to the golden calf, yet Yahweh was willing to destroy all of them. This is why it's important. If someone is in a grave sin, get away from them. And this is what I've been hearing from Yahweh. Get out of the cities. Get out of the cities before they become so heavy in affliction that you can't do anything. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Yisrael, your servants. Thanks, brother. Your servants to whom you swore by yourself, and you said to them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of the heavens, and all this land of which I have spoken I will give to your seed, and they shall inhabit it forever. Uh, I said I was going to talk about that. Do I have that up? No. So let's do that now. The seed is what? What is seed in Hebrew? So seed in Hebrew is the word. Come on, where are you? Descendants. So it's right here, Zara, which is led by the et, which, Dr. Pigeon thinks is important, but it's just a particle directing you to the object. It's not the alpha and omega. It's just et. You just read it because it's pointing you to the next word. Zarakim. So the word zara is what's translated as seed. And the idea isn't that you have one. Remember what he said in Genesis 1? And God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, subdue it, and have dominion over it. Be fruitful and multiply. So, the seed is not money, it's children. You see, and that's the real kicker here when we get to that. So let's continue through Exodus 32, which, he compares the seeds here also to the stars of the heaven, because there's only one star in heaven, right? One seed? No, it's multiple seeds. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by yourself, and you said to them, I will multiply your seeds as the stars of heavens, and all this land which I have spoken I will give to your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. So Yahweh relented concerning the harm which he said, and he would do to his people. Then Moses turned and went down from the mountain. The 2 tablets of the testimony were in his hand, and the tablets which were written on both sides, and they were written on one side and the other. And this is one thing you got to realize. Would the 10 words be written on both sides? No. See, what was written on the tablets was not just the 10 words or the 10 commandments. It was all that was encapsulated from Exodus 20. That's weird. This is not a direct reflection. It's opposite. Exodus 20, let's do it this way. Exodus 20 to Exodus 31. That's what was written on the 2 tablets with the finger of Yahweh. Now the tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God engraved on the tablets. And Joshua heard the sounds of the people as they shouted, and said to Moses, there is sound of war in the camp. But he said, it is the sound of the cry of triumph. It is not the sound of the cry of triumph, nor is the sound of the cry of defeat, but the sound I hear is singing. Now it happened as soon as Moses came near the camp that he saw the calf and the dancing, and Moses' anger burned. He threw the tablets, breaking the first covenant that was made here. That's why he had to go back up and make another one, from his hands, and shattered them at the foot of the mountain. Then he took the calf which they made and burned it with the fire, ground it into powder, and scattered it over the surface of the water, and made the sons of Israel drink it. This is the wormwood, the melting of the idol and drinking it. Then Moses said to Aaron, what did this people do to you, that you have brought such a great sin upon them? And Aaron said, do not let the anger of my Lord burn. You know the people yourself, they are prone to evil. Indeed, they said to me, make gods for us who will go before us. For this Moses, the man who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. And I said to them, whoever has any gold, let them tear it off. So they gave it to me. I threw it in the fire, and it came out this calf. And this is so ridiculous because, we know that he formed it, but he's telling Moses, I just threw the gold in there and the calf walked out. Like, no. No, Moses. Now Moses saw that the people were out of control, for Aaron had let them get out of control to be a derision among their enemies. So Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, whoever is for Yahweh, come to me. And all the sons of Levi gathered together to him. And he said to them, thus says Yahweh, the God of Israel, every man among you put his sword upon his thigh, and go back and forth from the gate into the camp, and kill every man his brother, and every man his friend, and every man his neighbor. So the sons of Levi did according to the word of Moses, and about 3,000 men of the people fell that day. And Moses said, be ordained today to Yahweh, for every man has been against his son and against his brother, in order that he may bestow a blessing on you today. Now it happened the next day, and Moses said to the people, you yourselves have committed a great sin, But now I am going up to Yahweh. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin. This was his goal. And what does he say next? Then Moses returned to Yahweh. Alas, this people has committed, excuse me, and to get a drink. They have made gods of gold for themselves. And now, if you will forgive their sin, but if not, please blot me out from your book, which I have written. So he wanted to be blotted out for the people. He wanted to atone for their sin. At this point, Moses was a very righteous man. He had not yet hit the rock instead of speaking to it, right? And this is why he couldn't enter the land. So at this point in his life, he was righteous in standing with Yahweh. And what did Yahweh say to him? Then Moses returned to Yahweh, said, Alas, this people has committed a great sin. They have made gods of gold for themselves. But if now you'll forgive their sin, but if not, please blot me out from your book which you have written. And Yahweh said to Moses, Whoever has sinned, I will blot out of my book. So does this mean there's no chance if you sin? That if you sin, that's it? No, not at all. This is the point of the curses. Affliction comes, and this is what and remember what he said, whoever, where was that at? Verse 27, right? Every man among you put a sword among the thigh. Where was that at? Affliction comes to turn us back to Yahweh. This is the purpose. So let's go forward. Oops, I didn't want to close that one yet. So let's reopen that. Luke 24. So Luke 24:27, Yeshua says this to them, and this is something every Christian misses. Then the beginning with the words of Moses, which is the Torah, and the prophets, he interpreted to them all these things concerning himself in the scriptures. In Acts 17:11, now these were more noble-minded than those in Thessalonica, for they received the word. What's the word? The Torah. Examining the scriptures daily to see if these are so. So let's go now to Deuteronomy 26. The affliction, the oppression, right? When we cried out to Yahweh, when they were what? When they were afflicted in slavery, the God of our fathers, Yahweh, heard our voice, saw our affliction and our toil and our oppression. And Yahweh brought us out of the affliction of Egypt with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, with great terror and with signs and wonders. And then Deuteronomy 28. So this is important. Read this whole chapter. The blessings for keeping Torah and the curses for not. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And that's what I see in the curses and blessings reality check. So let's now think about this. We know the fruit is our children. We know the word, the seed, is Torah. How do we know that? Psalm 1, the first psalm. The way of the righteous and the wicked. How blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of the scoffers. But his delight is in the Torah, the instructions of Yahweh. In his Torah he meditates day and night, and he will be like the tree firmly planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in its season. The fruit is not money. God doesn't care about money. It's children. What its leaf does not wither, and whatever he does, he prospers. In Jeremiah 17, thus says Yahweh, cursed is the man who trusts in mankind and makes his flesh his strength. So you've turned to the Goyim's God, Elohim, the God that is a man. You worship a man instead of Yahweh. You've made him the strength of Yahweh, whose heart turns away from Yahweh. He will be like a juniper in the desert and will not see prosperity come. but he will dwell in the stony waste of the wilderness, the land of salt, which is not inhabited. Blessed is the man who trusts in Yahweh, whose trust is Yahweh. And he will be like a tree planted by the water that sends forth its fruits by a stream. It will not fear when the heat comes, but its leaves will be green. It will not be anxious in a year of drought, nor refrain from yielding fruit. So if you're planted in the Creator, taking the water of Torah, even though the rest of the world is suffering affliction, you will prosper. Your life will be blessed. And I love the next verse here. The heart is more deceitful than all else and desperately sick. Who can know it? Our heart desires things that are not the will of Yahweh. So when someone says, pray about it and follow your heart, I, Yahweh, search the heart. I test the innermost being, even to give to each man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his deeds. You see, if your deeds are wicked, then you are wicked. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what's in your heart. This is something that I've heard so many of them say, well, God knows my heart. Yeah, he does. And he says it's desperately wicked. This is why he looks to your deeds. Right. Jesus knows my heart. Yeah, and he also knows your deeds, and they're wicked. If your deeds are wicked, your heart is wicked. So, are there any questions about the seed? Let us be fruitful and multiply, and let us be merciful to those that are. That is, well, what's the history of sport, handsome dude? History of sports goes back to the Greek gymnasium, and that's where gymnasium comes from. In the gymnasium, they would compete while being nude. And this is something you see in the book of Maccabees. In the first Maccabees, it says they built their altar to the body in Jerusalem, and that was why the Jews would mask their circumcision to go into the gymnasium with the Greeks. It is worship of the body. I do believe that sports, which is used as bread and circus, is a distraction from the Torah. It's entertainment. And this is really interesting. You look at the semantics of words, right? Yeah, exactly. Reality check. And it is such a distraction. It's the classic Hegelian dialectic. I'm gonna cheer for my city team. My color red is gonna win against your color blue. Yeah. It doesn't matter. What's the origin of entertainment? In the 1530s, a provision for support of a retainer, a manner of social behavior. 16th century senses from entertainment, meaning the amusement of someone. And the word mint is the mind. So entertainment is to control your mind. This is the purpose of sports. It's a distraction, so you're not paying attention to what's going on. No, it's definitely not. Wrestling nude. Oh God. Technically, the Torah doesn't say that watching sports is a sin, but it is an idol of of the nations. It is a distraction from meditating on the Torah. And as reality check says, you know, what's the purpose of it? You know, what are these people doing? They're cheering for a team, often playing on the Sabbath, to say that, you know, my team won. And this is something I remember when I watched sports. They, yay, go team. Oh, we won against that other team. How did you win? You weren't on the field playing. You're in the stands cheering or booing for the other team. Any other question? Right. The programming, Sammy. Sound like a rabbi from the Talmud? All I'm saying is if at reality check says they're brilliant, is it something that you have made an idol? Is it something that you have let distract you from the word? What do they do? What's the history of it? What, like a Super Bowl show with half naked women running around, and you know, you look at the Masonic symbols. It's crazy. And this is something that a lot of people have caught on lately. And this was 9 years ago. Is the Super Bowl halftime show a Masonic ritual? And the answer is yes. Yeah, it is. I mean, look at some of these images. This is clearly esotericism being displayed on your screen. Mystery religion. Now, if you want to say, well, it's not, you know, like directly written against Torah that you should not watch sports. Yeah, it's not. But you have to look at the spirit of the law as well. What's the spirit of the law? Do not worship in the way of the Gentiles. What are the Gentiles doing in this stadium? They're worshiping the team. They're putting their adoration, their heart into this team. Right. And they're marked their bodies for the team. You know, and that includes the team USA. Yeah, the USA is Babylon. Look at, I mean, here they are marking up their bodies for their idols, their team. Doesn't matter if it's their pagan nation or their pagan team. And that's not Talmudic. It's just like getting to the spirit of the law. Are you worshiping Yahweh alone, or are you letting, I mean, this sexual image here? Good grief! All right, that's enough of that. Any other questions? I think we covered the television enough. Betting? What's the purpose of betting? It's casting lots, right? And this is the question somebody asked on Facebook. Is it a sin to cast lots? Well, in a way, it is, because you're basically you're using divination. Right. It's no different, reality check, that, you know, painting their body to worship their false god, the team of their city. When I used to watch movies, I watched Gladiator. And what does he do? After he kills the man, what does he say? Are you not entertained? Are you not being controlled? Watching me challenge this other man and destroy his life. This is the way the gladiators were. But now it's not like physically they're not being decapitated, right? You just destroy them with a score. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, Charles. Yeah, people gamble their money in the stock market. And, I have issues with that as well. If you're doing it with divination, that's bad. But, I don't know that you should have money there either. And that's something I'm trying to get out of debt so I can do myself. It's something I pray for, free me from the debt I have. I don't want to be involved in all of this. I don't know why people would. Yep. Rome throughout history has given us this crappy entertainment and food to keep us entertained. This is the whole reason behind it today, to keep us humans distracted. This is the reason for entertainment, for movies, for sports, for video games. It's all to keep your mind controlled, to keep you distracted from seeking the truth. I don't know. Why did I ever fall for that garbage? And that system is soon going to do planned dementia 2.0. They're going to give us more lockdowns, more masks, and more jabs. And guess what they're going to call essential workers, just as they did the first time. Did you notice that, Joe down the street had to go home because he couldn't build his widgets? They were no longer essential. The sports teams making millions of dollars were still playing sports, but with empty stadiums being broadcast into your home because that's essential. Mm, yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting one, especially given Deuteronomy 24:16. Well, I gotta break this off. I hope that everyone had a good study and that we go out and show mercy toward others. I'm not issuing a judgment as a Talmudic sage would do, handsome dude. I'm just saying, like, look at your heart. And, this is an important realization. Your heart is deceitful, it wants to lead you into Babylon, it wants you to not serve Yahweh alone. That's frustrating. I've decided I'm not going to go to the doctor unless I'm deathly ill. And even then, I'd rather trust in the great healer Yahweh. hope everyone is blessed, that you press in, and if you feel afflicted, humble yourself. If you are judged, humble yourself. Humility and mercy go so far in the truth getting out there.